Damon here with IGN News. Star Wars fans, prepare to be sad. I'm about to tell you about two canceled Star Wars games that sound really cool, but we'll probably never get to play. Factor 5 was the developer behind the Star Wars Rogue Squadron games and the infamous Dragonflight game Lair. Former President Julian Eggebrecht has revealed to IGN his team was, at multiple points, working on two different unreleased Star Wars games for multiple platforms. First, there was to be a Rogue Squadron trilogy for the original Xbox, containing the first Rogue Squadron, Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader, and Rogue Squadron 3, Rebel Strike. This trilogy was meant to be one massive collection of all three games. The team had completed nearly 50% of this trilogy when a reportedly rocky and unstable environment at LucasArts led to its early cancellation. Factor 5 then moved on to begin work on a launch title for the then upcoming Xbox 360. The team hoped to finally implement something on the new hardware they had been eyeing since the days of the original Xbox: online multiplayer. Work began on what would have been the next Rogue Squadron, a space combat game with a heavy emphasis on cooperative multiplayer. Called Star Wars Rogue Squadron X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, it was intended to be a massive multiplayer game with warring factions. Development was underway when cancellation again haunted the team. Dubious of creating a launch title, LucasArts decided to kill the project. Not long after cancellation, a promising new opportunity presented itself. Eggebrecht explains, the moment Rogue Squadron was cancelled, Shuhei Yoshida from Sony basically held out his hand and basically said, "Come on guys, come on to the PlayStation team. We're still looking for PlayStation 3 launch titles." They pitched the online Rogue Squadron to Yoshida, but the idea was rejected on the grounds of Sony wanting to have an internal new game for the PS3. While workshopping an idea for a new game, the team considered what they could possibly do with similar ideas. The result was Lair, of which Eggebrecht says it was far too ambitious for a launch title. It was a pretty big mistake. Once their exclusivity period with Sony ended, Factor 5 turned their attention back towards Nintendo and the Wii. They were particularly interested in advancements in motion controls Nintendo had made with the all-new Wii Motion Plus. The team decided to resurrect one of their previous projects, the Star Wars trilogy originally slated for the first Xbox. The team found that the slightly more powerful GameCube hardware found inside the Wii would make transitioning the game from an old generation to new relatively easy. It was important to the team that the trilogy would run on any possible control scheme, including both the GameCube controller and some of the Wii's peripherals. Eggebrecht says, "We wanted to support every single control that you can imagine. So, for the flight sequences, you could, for example, choose to have the Mario Kart wheel to actually control your X-Wing, together with the balance board, which would control the pedals. Space combat wasn't the only focus, however. There were also speeder bike racing levels, third-person action sequences, and even lightsaber battles, making the most of the Wii Motion Plus one-to-one controls. An all-new graphics engine had the game running at 60 frames per second, with a visual fidelity Eggebrecht is still proud of. He says, "Believe me, if you ever saw it running on the Wii at 60 FPS, it is by far, and I think I'm not overstating that, the technically most impressive thing you would ever see on Wii." The Wii trilogy was eventually finished, but once again, Factor 5's Star Wars project was shut down. Eggebrecht largely attributes the cancellation to the financial crisis of 2008 and the fact that the team had taken it upon themselves to self-fund the project in order to claim a larger piece of the pie once it was distributed. It didn't help that two of their potential publishers for other projects went bankrupt, and LucasArts was having its own financial woes. As for developing a new Star Wars game for the Wii U, he says he loves the system, but its unpredictable trajectory and licensing troubles make it unlikely. But hey, there is that new Star Wars Battle Pod game coming to arcades next year, which looks really cool. This is IGN News.